try to realize if everyone were exactly like you, thought like you, did things like you, had your faults, what wouldn't you like about ISKCON? Probably a lot of things. Well, first thing is that nobody would be at Mangal Arti. And then there'd be hardly any preaching because everybody'd be working. And, you go on, you realize, okay, if everyone were like me, that's not the ultimate answer. Although, in our dreaming, dreary, unclear consciousness, we may think, well, if everyone were like me, ISKCON would be better. But no, we need different people. So Prabhupada said, nothing's going to be perfect in the material world, even in Krishna consciousness it's not going to be perfect, but appreciate that everybody has their nature and they can contribute. So appreciate their contribution. Somehow or other, appreciate everyone's contribution, even if you disagree. And what do you appreciate? There's a saying that when you see another person, you judge them by what they do. But yourself, you judge by your motivation, your intention. Why did I do it? You judge other people by their actions, but you judge yourself by your intentions, your motivations. Well, I lied because I was just trying to help somebody, but Sharda sees, no, he lied. So she's seeing my action, but I'm lying and I'm thinking, no, but my intention was to help. Interesting, isn't it? We see others by their actions, we see ourselves by our intention. What did I intend to do? I messed up, but my intention really was to help. I don't know that, I just see that you messed up. But so we need to look beyond just the action and think, well, what was their intention? And so if we're generous, we'll see here is a sincere devotee. He's trying to serve Krishna as best he or she can. That's how we see. And so even if they fail in some ways, even if there's some fault, we look to the motivation. And that's how Prabhupada saw. He saw, is there some sincerity there? Is there some desire to serve Krishna? Okay, there may be so many weaknesses, so many faults, but is there some desire to serve Krishna? If there is, let me appreciate that. Let me honor that. Let me tell the person, I appreciate that. That's how it works. So then we can easily see why it's so difficult to cooperate, because it requires a lot of reprogramming. What to speak of forgiving something that you think is unforgivable. It requires a real switch in how you see things. And ultimately, we see every situation as a learning opportunity. Krishna is sending this person to teach me something. So maybe I don't like the person. He said, but Krishna is sending me this person to teach me to be more tolerant. I find the actions of this person very intolerable. It's like, oh, good. Now I can learn to become more tolerant. Krishna has sent me somebody. If he doesn't send me somebody that I can't tolerate, how do I learn to become tolerant? I need something I can't tolerate so I can practice tolerance. So husbands and wives, if you have difficulty tolerating your spouse, accept your spouse as a gift from Krishna to help you become more tolerant. It's true, isn't it? You can learn so much tolerance in Grihastha life if you care to learn. This is a big coconut I'm eating. In Mayapur they have these coconuts that just keep drinking and drinking and they never end. They're like Chintamani coconuts. So really one of the biggest problems that any of us face in learning cooperation and learning to better deal with one another is this ability to turn things around and look at the problems that we're having with others from our point of view, from what we're contributing to it. Even if it just means I'm being affected adversely by what the other person is doing, and then looking at, why am I being affected that way? How can I change my consciousness? When we have these ceremonies after the devotee passes away, you think anybody says anything bad about the person? Oh, that devotee, I hated that devotee. They did so many horrible things. You think anybody says that? I know a few people would like to say it, but generally no one will say such things. They'll say nice things. They'll appreciate the devotee. Why? Because the devotee had so many nice qualities. And who wants to say, after the person's left, who would be so foolish as to get up in front of the audience and criticize and find fault? Right? That would be crazy. So why should it be any different when they're alive? Jiva Goswami said, envy is not so bad. He said, but when it comes out of your mouth, then it's bad. Because now you're not controlling it. And now you're hurting the other person. So it becomes kind of violence. Okay, I may be envious of Sharda. I don't say anything. I control it. I know it's wrong. I try to serve her. I try to be nice. But if I say it, then the envy is now, I've lost control. Then it's like swords in her heart. In the Bhagavatam, in the story of Sati, when Daksha offended her husband, she was so upset. In the purport, in the verse, it says that the words of her father were like piercing her heart, just like knives in her heart. She couldn't tolerate it, and that's why she gave up her body. So, you know, Prabhupada talks about the piercing words, how words can tear apart our heart. Jiva Goswami says the same thing, that here, okay, I may be envious, but then it becomes violent when I express it in words, because it will tear apart the part of another person. It's like throwing daggers, knives at the other person's heart. It's really, really bad. It's a really, really bad quality, and something we need to learn to control. But beyond controlling it, we need to change our consciousness, so that then there's nothing to control. It's that the fact that that's in our heart, we have to say control it, but what should really be in our heart is the appreciation. If you appreciate another devotee, that will make you Krishna conscious, and you'll feel really good, feel really happy. If you say something nice about another devotee. What to speak of, say something nice about someone you don't like, you feel really happy. You ever done that? Say something nice about someone you don't like? Try it. You don't have to tell the person. You can just tell anybody, so-and-so has this quality. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur always wanted his devotees to glorify the other devotees. He would never allow them to criticize. And he said, criticism is reserved for the spiritual master. That's his job. And the spiritual master doesn't want to criticize his disciples, but that's his service. So he does it. But it's considered a thankless task that the spiritual master has to criticize, chastise. The father corrects the son or daughter. The guru is like the father. He corrects, or the Siksha guru, or the senior corrects the junior. It's a thankless task. They don't want to do it. They want to glorify, but they have to do it. It's a thankless task. But we should not take that thankless task upon us when we're not in that position. Why would we want to take on a thankless task? It's not our service. The service the Guru has to do, he doesn't want to do that aspect of the service. He considers it thankless, and then we take it upon ourselves to criticize others. See how foolish that is? Jai Jagannath. Navadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Smatila. So, I'll tell you another important point to understand. Have you ever gone to a class and heard something like don't find fault, and the class was really good and it was explained really well, and you realized that I should stop finding fault, and you got very inspired, and then you found yourself a week later or 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later kind of reverting back to your tendency to find fault? That ever happened to anybody? So the understanding is that the mind is only a reflection of the heart. So if you try to control the mind without changing the heart, it's like, you could just say it's a band-aid solution. Because the real solution is to change the heart. So if you ever find that happening, it just means that you're making an attempt to do something without going deep enough to the level of consciousness which is creating the problem. Right? Because if the problem is still there, the tendency is still strongly there, you can try to fight it up here for a while, but the thoughts will always be there. So you have to fight it on a deeper level. And of course in Krishna consciousness, most of the work we do is not fighting, it's positive work. It's not fighting negative, it's moving positive. So positive means, in this connection, replacing the tendency to fault find with the tendency to appreciate, to see the good. The bad may be there, but we don't look at it. Just like the good may be there when we see the bad. Right? So the bad may be there, but we don't see it. We see the good, so it's a positive. And then the heart changes. Then no longer in my life am I looking to find what's wrong with somebody. And I realize, as I said earlier, I realize that because I'm not practicing the principles of humility deeply, I have that tendency. So I want to develop more of a humble attitude, more of a humble consciousness, humble action, humble being. So I realize that's the solution. It's not just, okay, I won't find fault, but it's how can I develop the consciousness of being in the mood of appreciation, being in the mood of service, developing more of a humble attitude that I'm not the best thing, I don't have to judge everybody. Right? So it's a change of consciousness. That's a higher level of consciousness. Appreciation is a very high level of consciousness, and fault finding is a very low level, isn't it? Fault finding would be associated with the modes of passion and ignorance. And appreciation is associated with the very heart and nature of a Vaishnava. So again, we've got the Windows 7 program. It's telling us to fault find. We have to get the upgrade. Windows 108. Goloka 108, the new software. You wish it were that easy, right? We just put some diodes on your brain and plug in the program and you get a reprogramming. Everybody gets along. They write this Krishna conscious software so the computer just impregnates in your consciousness all the right thoughts. I think that's called the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Prabhu, how do I get the upgrade? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. That's your upgrade. Prabhu, I've been chanting Hare Krishna for 20 years. I never got the upgrade. No, that's not the Maha Mantra you're chanting. You're chanting Nish Nish Ram Ram Hare Hare. Nish Nish Ram Ram Hare Hare. You're not chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. We're actually chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, we'll get the upgrade. So we see within our heart there's a tendency to want to minimize, criticize, be jealous, envious. of other Vaishnavas. Very strong propensity, because that is the fuel that fuels our material consciousness. It's the fuel that, it's why we came here in the material world, to be number one. So that consciousness, it's still there, it's still underlying, isn't it? It's like it's the program, the software. It's still working. And that's why when you try to stop it, it's not so easy. And we need to replace it by something really strong. And appreciation is a very strong thing. My experiences, though, and I gave a lecture here 2-3 years ago. Most of you weren't there, I don't think. But I was saying that what happens in Krishna consciousness, one thing that happens in Krishna consciousness, is that as you advance at a certain point, you begin to develop different kinds of desires. So right now I'm saying, well, you should appreciate the devotees. And you might be thinking, I don't know if I want to. I don't know if I want to that much. I mean, I want to, but I don't know if I really want to. I mean, finding faults is a lot easier, more fun. I get more gratification from it. I mean, these are subtle thoughts that may be going on. But then you say, but Prabhu, how do I get to this point where I'm just wanting to appreciate? So my experience is that advancing in Krishna consciousness in a way that these qualities and similar qualities develop is that as you advance, the desire to develop these qualities becomes stronger. Because the realization is, if you don't really want to appreciate, if you don't really want to stop fault finding, it's not going to happen. It'll always be there to some degree. But when you come to this point, say, I'd really like to be that devotee who always appreciates others. This is really what I want. I'm really attracted to that. I really hate it when I fault find. I don't like it. I don't like to hear it. I don't like to speak it. It makes me miserable to hear it. It makes me miserable to speak it. I love to appreciate the other devotees. I love and appreciate those who appreciate the other devotees. This is what Krishna consciousness is all about. This is the kind of organization I want to be a part of. This is what I want to contribute to the organization. When you actually feel that because of your progress in devotional service, then it happens. And that's how all these qualities develop. That we come to a point in our advancement that we actually want them. We relish them. They're higher qualities. And our consciousness is now higher. So they're more attractive to us. But I can guarantee, if you really are not attracted to the concept of appreciation or the concept of humility or the concept of cooperation, if it doesn't resonate deeply within your heart as something you really want, then you'll hear the class, it sounds good, a few days later you'll go back to where you were. Because that's where you are is where you are. That's where you want to be. That's where you live. We are what we are because that's what we want, where we want to be and who we want to be. Say, Prabhu, I'm so puffed up. And I say, why? You say, I don't know. I say, because you want to be. And you get offended. And it's true, though. We are what we are because we want to be. Prabhupada was asked by one brahmachari. He said, Prabhupada, why is it that the male attraction to women is so strong? And Prabhupada said, because you want to enjoy them. And he said, why are they so attractive? He said, because you want to enjoy them. You think the women were attractive to Rupa Goswami? I don't think so. He might have recognized, here's a beautiful woman, but it doesn't mean he wanted connection with her. So if we want to enjoy women, they'll be attractive. If we want to serve Krishna, then we'll see them as mother. Right? It's our desire that has to change. So if we're finding fault, then we have to admit in our own heart, I'm doing it because I want to. I like it. I'm getting something from it. Prabhus. Matajis. Do you voluntarily do something if you don't get pleasure from it? Do you wake up in the morning, take a hammer, and knock your head? Anybody do that? Do you break a glass in the kitchen and lay down on it? Anybody do that? You put tacks and nails on your chair and sit down? We voluntarily do things that give us pleasure. We are voluntarily fault-finding. It's a voluntary act. You say, no, Prabhu, I'm just conditioned by the mode of passion. You voluntarily offered yourself to the mode of passion. You can get out of the mode of passion. Don't blame it on the modes of nature. Don't blame it on Maya. It's a voluntary act. That's why we do it. And so when we advance in Krishna consciousness, we'll come to a point where voluntarily we want to appreciate. That's more attractive to us. And that's what we'll do. So we have to be honest enough to admit, I'm doing it because I want to, ultimately. That's why. If you didn't want to, you wouldn't do it. You're getting something from it. Some prestige, some satisfaction in putting somebody down. Something you're getting, otherwise you wouldn't do it. Would you do something detrimental to your spiritual life? I don't think so. Unless you're getting something, side benefit. We get some benefit. In our forgiveness workshop, we ask, what benefit do you get by holding on to resentment? And we get devotees give so many reasons. They find so many reasons. And they realize, yes, I'm doing this because I'm getting something from it. Has to be. We should never say, I can't help myself. I'm so fallen. It's just the way I am. Don't ever say that. By saying that, you've totally disempowered yourself from improving. You just said, I can't. Basically, I could retranslate that, and you just said, I cannot improve myself. This is how I am. Right? So what's going to happen if you say that? You're going to get any better? Who's going to make you better? You are. Who's going to make you worse? You are. Prabhupada quoted this Isa Upanishad, Atmaha. Atmaha means killer of the soul. So Prabhupada said, you have the instructions of Guru, you have the Sangha of Vaishnavas, you have all facility, the Maha Mantra, you have everything, and you don't take advantage of it, you're committing spiritual suicide. We want to say, oh Prabhu, I'm lazy, that's why I do this, or I'm just this or that. Why make excuses? What's the point? You either want to improve or not. If you don't want to improve, just admit, I don't want to improve. Don't make excuses. Because excuses won't help. How Krishna conscious we are today is a result of what? The result of what we do. Yesterday, the day before, last week, last month, last year, the year before, is a result of our actions. And where we will be next year is a result of our actions in the next few years. It's no one else's fault if we're not Krishna conscious, is it? We have to accept that it's us, that we are who we are. So if we're finding fault, okay, we're finding fault, then to make it doubly worse, we blame the modes of nature. That's like we remove it the next step. It's not my fault I'm finding fault, it's the fault of the mode of, I'm in the mode of ignorance, I can't help myself. Now we blame the mode of ignorance. So we're just painting ourselves into a corner and we can't get out. I have to go and see if anybody made any comments. Hold on a second. I have a question. Okay. Question. Wait a minute. We have Ajinkya from India. Ajinkya, the time rate. For Ajinkya, it's quite early. It was 5 o'clock in the morning when we started. Okay, Sneha has a question. When people agitate us, the very first natural reaction is anger. Even though we know I am upset with myself, the emotional reaction comes first, then the intellectual understanding. Sneha, I answered your question. Did you check your email? Okay, so here's the answer. I'll give everyone the answer. She was asking this question. So, okay, intellectually I know I shouldn't get angry, but I become angry. There's a really nice quote. I don't know who said it, but this person said, your victory happens before you get in the arena, or before you get on the stage, before you do it. It's all the work you do before that determines whether you're going to be victorious or not. You know, let's say you have to prepare a speech. You have to give a speech somewhere, right? So where's the victory of the speech going to take place? In your preparation. It's all going to happen before you get there. It's not going to, you're just not going to wing it and go on stage. What happens when you go to fight a battle? You're trained. You go to start a company, a business, you've got your MBA, you've gone to business school, you've prepared, you've studied, you've done research. Then you go out to do your work. You want to paint beautiful paintings. You've gone to art school, you've studied. You've done all your work, you're succeeding. Before you actually do it, your success is determined. So the same thing with anger, that many of us have not yet decided we don't want to be angry anymore. So it's like we don't mind being angry, so we continue to get angry. My experience is that dealing with anger and the things that upset us, it takes place before the situation happens, not during. Or you can say afterwards I realize I shouldn't have been angry. Well, everybody realizes that, right? That's just natural, because you feel so miserable after you do it. Everybody regrets being angry, unless your anger was controlled and it had some productive purpose or productive result. But if before, it's the same thing, you know. I don't want to be angry. Anger is an action of the mode of ignorance. I don't want to relate to people from anger. Anger, as I told you, Sneha, anger is a symptom of intolerance. Who do you think you are to treat me that way? Where does that come from? It comes from pride. I'm driving down the road and somebody drives in front of me and I yell and scream at them. I don't know if Indians do that, but Americans are good at that. How dare you cut in front of me? That means I'm going to get home 4 seconds later. Who do you think you are to cut me off? Don't you know who I am? I have important things to do. I have to get home and watch television. Now I'm going to be 5 seconds late. I might miss 5 seconds of my television show. This is all coming, this intolerance is coming from pride. I can't tolerate. I'm in a line and the cashier is moving slow. I can't tolerate it. In Mayapur, they have lines that go for prasadam. How far do they go? They must go like, on Sundays in Mayapur, I see sometimes a line goes 400 yards. People are waiting to take prasadam in a line for 400 yards in the sun. If those were Americans, there'd be a riot. They'd bomb the place. They couldn't deal with it. The Indians are just talking with their family, having a good time. Because the Americans have a different sense of self. How dare you put me out in this line? There's not even shade in the line. And they'd be thinking, the Americans would be thinking, they shouldn't have a shelter here. They should have another pavilion. Why only one? Why not two? Why is it taking so long? This is intolerable. I can't deal with this. Indians are like, they're just happy to be in Mayapur. They're just talking and joking with their family. It's a different mentality. There's more humility there. When we went to India in the early 70s, before India was modernized, it was behind the times. And very, due to the grace of the British, very bureaucratic in however they did things. So for the Westerner, for the American, they couldn't understand the bureaucracy, and everything would pay here, but get your receipt here and take the receipt here, get it stamped, then bring it back to the first person who'll sign it and then give it to the second person. And then show that receipt when you leave the gate. And all you did was buy a pen. Like that, you know, Americans are like, what's going on? If they couldn't deal with that. They become very angry and upset. You're wasting my time, this is stupid, you know, so it all stems from this sense of false prestige, that I'm so important. I can't tolerate these things. So if we decide, we change our consciousness to, I'm not so important. I was giving a workshop on humility, and I came up with an exercise, and the exercise was this, to ask the devotees to meditate on how often you complain. Just to actually start thinking about, and I said, what do you complain about? And you have to write down all the things you complain about. I complain about the weather, I complain about my job, I complain about my wife, I complain about the cost of this, I complain about the cost of that. You know, then you realize how much we complain. Because the point was, the Mahaprabhu says, more tolerant than a tree. This is connected with humility. Because I'm complaining because I think I don't deserve all this. I deserve better. I'm an important person. Don't treat me like that. You can't say that to me. This anger is all intolerance. So if we change our consciousness, we can decide, all right, this is not Krishna consciousness. This is not how I want to choose to behave and respond to this world. I want to respond with greater tolerance, greater patience. These are all virtues of a Vaishnava, which are especially important for those who want to give Krishna consciousness to others, to have deep tolerance, deep patience. And as I said, Sneha in the letter, also compassion. Compassion, understanding for those we're getting upset with. Why are they doing what they're doing? Why is this situation like this? This is the way it is. For Americans, like, we go to India. Now, since you've been in America a long time, when you go back to India also, you question, why do they do things this way? A lot of things they do they don't make sense, do they? It's just, why do you do it? Because we always did it that way. But this doesn't make sense. It doesn't matter. It's just how we do it. So what do? You just go along with it. What can you do? Right? It's just how it is. So devotees who live in India, they make the adjustment. Then they're okay. They just adjust. Okay, I'm not going to get upset by these things, because if I do, I'll be getting upset every 10 seconds. Which is really hard in Mayapur, because it's a village. And village people, when you ask them to do things, you're asking them to do things they've never done before. They're like, actually clean, so it's clean? That doesn't. They don't know what clean is. Clean is not the way we see clean. They have a different standard of clean. Or professionalism in how they do things. Should I tell you a story? There's a funny story. It was a bad day in India one day, and everything was going wrong. That could go wrong, and some things were going wrong that couldn't go wrong. And finally, we ordered a refrigerator, because the other refrigerator wasn't working well. And he came from Krishnanagar to Mayapur, which is 45 minutes by car, and he came on a little, we thought he was going to come in a truck. He came on a motor rickshaw. An auto with a flatbed in the back. It's like a motorcycle with a flatbed. This is not really how you would transport, 30-mile. So he brings up and it's broken because that thing doesn't have proper suspension, right? So none of it was broken. I think there were like 6 other things that went wrong that day. But then he wouldn't leave the house. He said, little, he was already being paid. He said, well, give me a little donation. I said, all right, I gave him 200 rupees. He said, no, 700. So I gave him 400. I said, 400. 400 is like $8. That's more than he makes in a day's work anyway. He wouldn't leave. He was holding on to me. He kept like, no, 7, like this, in my house alone with him. So he delivers a broken refrigerator, but he won't leave my house until I give him 700 rupees. And he's holding on to me while I'm escorting him out the door. He's still holding on to me. 700 rupees, 700, please. Holding my shirt. I can't remember all the other things that went wrong that day, but it would have been a good comedy show. A Day in India, the new television show, A Day in India. It would have been a great comedy show. So how do we deal with that? We have to adjust our consciousness because that's how it is. So we adjust it before. And if somebody comes from America to India and they don't make that adjustment, they go crazy. Isn't it? They can't do it. And the Indians are there, and it's like, it doesn't bother them because they're used to it. But the American comes and he goes crazy. So he has to. So the same way in life, if we make the adjustment beforehand to accept, okay, I'm not the greatest thing in the world. I may have to wait in lines a little longer than I want to. People will cut me off in traffic. People will say things I don't like. My dearest friends will say things I don't like. It make me feel bad, so on and so forth. But I have decided to act as a Vaishnava. I made that decision. I'm not going to be intolerant. I'm not going to become upset. I'm not going to become angry. We become angry because we haven't made that decision yet. I'm good. Coconut's finished. Okay, that was about an hour and 20-minute answer to that question. We started at 7:30, and my clock says it's 8:56. So.
We have some guests who can speak about taking Krishna consciousness.
Taking it up.
And then
taking it up and out. That's how to take it up. Krishna consciousness means service. Hold on a second. Krishna consciousness means, material consciousness means, I want to be served. I want to be honored. I want, me, I'm in the center. So, material consciousness means you picture the universe and everything in it, and you're in the center, and everything is coming towards you. And you want as much as you can get. And that's the conception of happiness. If I get more honor, more friends, better position, more wealth, I could be more beautiful, well, just have the things of this world. They come to me, that's my perfection, then I'm happy. That's material consciousness. Spiritual consciousness means, take that same picture and you put God in the center. And so all of that goes to Him, and you serve. Make God happy. Make Krishna happy. Bring everything to Him. That's it. Simple. Material consciousness, spiritual consciousness. It's all about who's in the center. Who's in the center of your life? You or God? So you might say, well, I'm in the center, but God's there with me. Okay. You're halfway there. But why is He in the center and you're still there? Is it that you want Him to facilitate your material life? That's not spiritual life. But we want Him to facilitate our spiritual life. So material consciousness and spiritual consciousness simply are based on the way we see things. How do we see things in this world? Do we see things in this world with the vision, with the idea of this is meant for me, or do we see it, this is meant for God? That's all. That's it. Simple. So, the philosophy of Krishna consciousness teaches that service is who we are. Service is our nature. And material consciousness teaches that material consciousness teaches that the wrong button. Material consciousness teaches that it tries to deny the fact that we're servant. What's that saying? I'd rather be a master in hell than a servant in heaven. That desire to be a master is so strong. Rather be a master in hell than a servant in heaven.